Here we are, and welcome to a wicked episode of the Friday Night Movie Podcast, because today we're going to defy gravity, because Becky is going to give her hot takes on Wicked, which has right now a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the more important thing for me is always the audience score, a 97% in the audience score, and every cool person on the internet that I have ever heard of is filming themselves singing during this show, and they're into this show. And I want to preface this with just this. Look, everyone knows I'm a Cats super fan. I love a musical. This is not a show I know much about. I've heard the Idina Menzel, Christian Chenoweth version of Defying Gravity many times. And that's about all I know. It's like a prequel, like The Phantom Menace, but I'm not super knowledgeable about this. And so I'm looking to you, Becky.
Okay.
You are riding the wave of the zeitgeist.
Okay, let's start with this. Okay, first of all, I've seen the Broadway show twice. Once on Broadway, once the touring company. Very recently, I saw it last year.
My wife and kids saw it on not a Broadway, but a touring company with Mom.
Yeah.
And they were actively like pass on seeing the movie.
Okay, so beloved show. It's a beloved show. It's
modern classic.
Modern classic, and it is beloved because, you know, listen, Broadway musicals aren't for everyone, but if you like musicals, like Wicked is really in the tops. Like if you don't enjoy the experience of seeing Wicked, I think what it means is you're just not into musicals, which is fine. It's not for everyone, but it is for sure considered modern classic. Okay, so we're just creating some framework, some ground rules here. All right.
Right. So you're saying the so the Broadway show.
You're saying it has a 97% rating. It's like, yes, because your baseline material is considered to be a modern classic beloved by all. So you're starting off from like something very strong. Okay, so that's like our baseline. 2, it is somewhat of a prequel, but important just so you understand story-wise, the way the story happens. It starts as a prequel, but the timeline of the story of Wicked actually crosses over into the timeline of Wizard of Oz, and it's as if you're watching the entire movie of Wizard of Oz, but from a different perspective. But you're like with the Wicked Witch of the West.
So it's like Cobra Kai is from Johnny's perspective.
If they
sang.
No, but you know what I mean? Like the first half of the show. So you have, it's 2 acts. You got act 1. It ends with defying gravity. And then you got the second half of the show. The second half of the show, imagine, is happening simultaneously to the movie of Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
But you're seeing like the other POV.
Got it.
Right? So it like starts as a prequel, but it's not really a prequel. It's a different telling of the story.
Okay.
And there's some like really hilarious bits in the show. Like one of the things they keep going on about is like, what kind of person steals a dead woman's shoes? And so It's like all these like other perspectives on the characters are like, excuse me, she stole a dead woman's shoes. She is not in the right here. Okay.
I was watching the Screen Junkies honest trailer of the original Wizard of Oz. And when you listen to some of the stuff that Galinda or whatever her name is says,
Galinda, yeah,
where she says like, not all witches are ugly, only bad witches, right? Like there's some real like creepy body shaming, stuff, messages.
So it's kind of what Wicked undoes in a way, right? Okay, so that's like 2. Now we have like 3. We have our 2 very important facts.
This is part of what makes Wicked special and interesting is that but is it like Joker in that like we like the way?
No.
Joker this is a musical.
No. 100% what Wicked is. Wicked, like my children who first saw Wicked, the play, then watched Wizard of Oz, went, oh, so the story of the Wizard of Oz is a huge lie. So like Dorothy is a liar and all those people are huge liars. that's not the truth. The real story is Wicked, and Wizard of Oz is this like
propaganda piece.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's this warped, untrue thing. So my kids are like, oh, we like watching Wizard of Oz, but like nothing in that is true. Don't believe anything you see there. Okay. So we have our two baselines, modern classic. It's a sort of a simultaneous telling to Wizard of Oz from a different POV that gives you the quote unquote truth. Third very important piece of information here, the Broadway musical. I fact checked this. With a 15-minute intermission is 2 hours and 45 minutes, which means actual story time of action and events and songs and things happening, 2 hours and 30 minutes. This includes, as I said, the entire first act up to Defying Gravity and the entire second act, which is essentially all of the Wizard of Oz, but from a different character's perspective.
Got it.
Okay. So when I tell you that the movie Wicked is 2 hours and 40 minutes and it only covers up until Defying Gravity, we got some problems.
Oh, are you serious? So wait, it's 240 minutes till every 2 hours and 40 minutes. That's right, 240.
And it only gets
2 hours and 40 minutes until you get to that song.
It's longer than the entire Broadway show and only gets you to the midpoint.
This sounds like a real Hobbit, the Hobbit, not Lord of the Rings, but
what
Hobbit
is the tone and who is this for? What, The Hobbit, or what's that show on Prime? The Lord of the Towers or something?
Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings, the two, Power of the Ring. The Rings of Power, the prequel TV show, but it's kind of, it's connected, but it's different.
So imagine that Wicked Part 1, which for the record, they don't reveal that it's Wicked Part 1 until the movie ends. Have you seen a single poster that says Wicked Part 1? It just says Wicked. So what Wicked Part 1 is to the Wicked universe of theatrical content is what the Rings of Power is to the Lord of the Rings franchise, as in it's rich and detailed and wonderful, and it is really for people who love Wicked. And because there's a lot of people out there who love Wicked, of course, it has these incredible reviews because it delivers on this promise of expanding the universe, enriching the characters, giving you more.
I'm so happy for them. What are they called? Wicketers.
I'm so happy for them. But if you don't want to spend 2 hours and 40 minutes in what is basically the context of the interesting part of the story, I don't recommend going to the theaters for it, because that's what it is. The exciting and interesting part of the story is from Elphaba learns to fly and then it gets good. And then it gets interesting and exciting. Everything else is just backstory. So it's a lot of backstory. And then it ends and you're like, but wait, I've just been sitting here for 2 hours and 40 minutes and I got
But wait, so in the commercial where there are the big flags put down with her face saying she's a menace.
Okay, because the way that the story is done in the play, so
But is that in the movie you just saw?
Yes, because the play starts with the number "No one mourns the wicked." The play starts at the end.
Oh, okay.
So it starts at the point at which she's been melted or presumably melted.
Got it.
Everybody is celebrating the death of the Wicked Witch of the West, right? So it starts with "No one mourns the wicked," and then you have the good witch Galinda coming to town and with everyone, yay, we killed her, she's dead, and blah blah blah. And somebody asks her, "Oh, isn't it true that you went to school with her, that you knew her?" And then the story is really Galinda thinking back on.
Even though she's party to this propaganda, but she's really
party to this propaganda,
but is she really just faked Elphaba's death?
I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, spoiler. The whole
really? Did I just predict the ending?
Yeah, she helps fake Elphaba's death to protect her because she's so hunted and hated that she needs to escape, and so she helps fake Elphaba's death. Because
it seemed to me just from the commercials, the amount of investment in this friendship, I'm like, there's no way the end can be what we saw in the Wizard of Oz being the only truth.
Exactly. And that's why that's why it's so interesting, right? It's such a great story because you have to build a friendship that is so believable, so deep, so loving that they would go to such extremes.
Got it. Now, does that then later justify the exposing of the Wizard of Oz in the Wizard of Oz story? Was that part of their plan?
Part of what I hope is better explored in Wicked Part 2 when it comes out November 2025.
I mean, are you sure it's a Part 2 and it's not Part 2 of 3?
I can't guarantee that.
And
I can't guarantee that. I don't know for sure.
And if there's a Part 3, can we get a musical adaptation of this crazy movie called The Journey to Oz with Fairuza Balk?
Okay, no, hold on. Don't derail me.
Return to Oz?
I have a few more very important thoughts. Okay, one of the things that I think makes Galinda a really interesting character and really complex are these questions of morality, right? That she is facing of her friend, protecting her friend, and what's good for everyone, what's good for the individual, putting herself first, putting others first. And very much when we leave her at the end of Wicked Part 1, this is someone who wants to do what's right, but is still in conflict about what that exactly is. And so I hope that in the second half of the story, however many more sequels that takes, they really dive in deep on that so that that ending where she basically fakes the witch's death feels really satisfying, because I'm not quite there with it. Okay, 1. 2, one of the things I've been reading about lately is how the cast spent so many years making this movie and waiting for this movie to come out, that's one of the reasons why they've been like hyper emotional during the press tour and the release, is because it's been years and years in the making. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe that makes sense why they have all these really old people playing like young college students, is because they started making this 20 years ago when, reasonably speaking, Jonathan Bailey and Cynthia Erivo would have been in like somewhat in a realistic age range. Like at that point, just have Adina and Kristen play it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But when you're watching, I think Broadway, you can suspend the age.
No, and that's what it is. They're asking you to basically, because it's a Broadway show, that you suspend disbelief that you have these much older people playing younger. They also, I think, clearly do a lot of de-aging with CG.
Oh yeah, that's just like normal now, right?
But like extra de-aging, yeah.
The cast looks like it's fantastic.
No, they're superb. I mean, they cast this really, truly, like, impeccably. It feels like when you go see a show on Broadway, that casting is so important. That's what's going to deliver on the promise of the show. And I've had I've gone to see Rent, and Roger just isn't delivering, and it kind of ruins the experience.
Like if you don't have the right Roger.
If you don't have the right Roger, it kind of like kills the experience of the show, truthfully. And this is like the cast delivers. I mean, they give you the full Wicked experience. They are phenomenal. That's without a doubt. But it's so long. I'm watching it going, did they add extra musical numbers?
They must have, though, because they usually do add musical numbers in the movie versions of these things, because if they think they're going to be Oscar bait.
Really? And then that's the other thing, is you really feel like it's... Listen, Cynthia Erivo's great. I'm not saying she wouldn't deserve the Oscar no matter what for it, but it almost feels gratuitous at a point for how long it is, because you're like, okay, we get it. She's amazing. She can cry. She can sing. She can dance. But like after a while, you're like, I just need it to end. It's so much. Message received. Give her the award. Moving on.
So it says the soundtrack is 56 minutes and 42 seconds with the bonus tracks, but this is a 2 hour and 40 minute. So there's a lot of acting in this. There's a lot of
acting. A lot of stuff. A lot of acting.
So yeah, here, according to the rap, here are all the songs in the Wicked movie, but where are the good? I want to see. There has to be a new one, right? Are there new songs in the Wicked movie? Does Wicked have any new songs? Not only Oh yeah, has confirmed 2 new songs will be on the soundtrack. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I don't know which ones those are. I wonder, but okay, it's not. They're not making it clear. They're not making it clear on the internet where these new songs come from. Okay, so have you ever heard of? I want to sort of go do like a flashback, never-ending story moment. Have you ever heard of this movie, Return to Oz?
No, no, but I went to go see Wicked at the Alamo where they show you all these weird, old, obscure movie clips and commercials and stuff first, and they played some of that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna show you the trailer to this thing, which is like widely considered a classic, but also like well-known nightmare fuel. Okay. So I'm just gonna do a little screen share here. I love a little screen share situation.
Looks like an acid nightmare. What is happening? So they're just stealing her. So it's a sequel. Oh, but now Oz is on a beach.
Well, it's been destroyed.
It's been destroyed. Oh, I wonder if this also plays into the Wicked story then, if everything's been destroyed.
Where the Wheelers? I don't remember them.
Okay, the cool thing about the story of Wicked is that it gives you explanation of how these different creatures come to exist. The Tin Man, the Scarecrow. It like, how does Dorothy just come upon this road and meet all these people, you know?
Oh, it's sort of like it gives you as to how they ended up where they were. Yeah. So anyways, this movie Return to Oz, which is, I believe, made in the 80s and is extremely like dark, kind of Labyrinth-esque in its way and notorious for having scared the crap out of kids. I'm just wondering if Wicked is if there's a third movie that we're waiting for that's going to adapt that.
I'm sure people will be so excited. Anyways, it felt like a bit of a bait and switch. I did not know it was Wicked Part 1. I really feel like they should have called it Part 1. Like Dune Part 1. Dune Part 2.
But I didn't know Dune Part 2, there was going to be Part 3. I was very confused at the end of Dune Part 3.
That's because you don't follow the news like I do.
Should they have done Cats the same way? Just the first act of Cats,
I think the
as a 2.5 hour.
If you have an audience for something, people will milk it for all it's worth. You know, really just begs the question, just because you can, should you? And a lot of people think that, yes, they should. This was the correct decision. This is the right amount of Wicked.
If it does well and people like it, then...
Right. I want to be clear. I enjoyed it. Success. I thought Defying Gravity was just one of the most phenomenal musical experiences. She nailed it. It's beautiful. It's exciting. For me, it's too much story. It's too much character development. There is such a thing. That's my hot take.
All right, so there we have Becky's hot take on Wicked. If you saw Wicked, let us know what you think of it. So you're saying I shouldn't go see it in the theater? I shouldn't rush to see
I think you should go to a theater that has a nice, relaxing chair you can push back into into like a live flat seat.
And set an alarm for 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Nap, order a sandwich, take a nap, and turn it into an afternoon. Like I'm not saying don't go see it. I'm saying go see it with measured expectations of you're going to need to eat and you're going to need to rest to get through it. But you can nap and you won't miss much because the movie doesn't start till part 2. Don't worry.
Do you think it's got Oscar? It must have. Do you think it has Oscar juices?
Well, I got to tell you, the costumes were wild. It's some of the coolest costuming I have seen. It had so much imagination. It so detailed. It was so great the way that they handled the costume.
So it is almost Lord of the Ringsian, like it's as
like it really is in terms of that stuff. What's his name? Bowen Yang is in it, and he's so funny. He just plays a side character. He plays one of Glinda's, little cronies, and he's so funny.
It says the name of his character is Pafani.
Well, he's very funny.
And what about Oz is a scary place. I was mentioning Return to Oz being scary, but the original Wizard of Oz, who doesn't have nightmares about those monkeys or the trees? How do they play into this?
So I was going to say that they really uphold the tradition of making sure the flying monkeys will haunt the nightmares of children for yet another generation. Because when those flying monkeys attack for the first time, my younger one, I think she jumped 2.5 feet in the air. Like she jumped out of her seat, then curled up in a ball and cried.
How do they do them? Because in the original movie, part of why they're frightening is just how like weird that practical makeup is. Is it practical makeup?
So no, they're CG, so they're not scary to us, but they really use them for jump scares. They make them just very vicious.
Okay, so kind of like the Planet of the Apes monkeys.
Born, you see how this hybrid animal is created, and it's sort of this very
birth scene.
No, it's magic. It's like how the monkeys. Why do the monkeys fly? They're created using spells.
So they've got tons of other magic things in Oz, but flying monkeys were created separately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Logic. There's also like a weird logic.
Okay. I mean, as long as there's rules in the universe, that's cool. Well, this sounds like, for those fans of it, this sounds like a big thing. I
love it. If you're a Wicked fan, you're going to absolutely love it. If you're not a Wicked fan, if you're a parent thinking, oh, this is going to be a fun Thanksgiving weekend thing to do, I'm like, it will be. I just go in knowing what you're seeing. Just be prepared.
Got it. And what else? So let's switch gears to what else we've been watching. What else have you been watching? You watched Alien Romulus.
I watched Alien.
I mean, this is just Romulus. Like Becky's review episode. Keep going.
I watched Alien Romulus. I have to say, the Alien really is the star of that show. I think I loved how gross and alien-y and scary and all that stuff was. The final creature, the final big bad creature is bananas. Whoever came up with that is certifiable. Like, you have to be insane to come up with that creature design. That's off the charts terrifying. So good. I just didn't I wasn't rooting for any of the characters. And in fact, I was probably rooting for the company because the guy that plays Andy does such a good job of being
when he becomes the robot,
a synthetic, where he becomes like a super robot. I was like, yeah, damn right, you go and help the company. So I think there was a bit of
they have run into this problem now. I said this is a problem with all of the Alien movies since Sigourney Weaver, where the best characters keep being the synthetics. Right. David was the most interesting character in Prometheus, although I did like Elizabeth Shaw, but they killed her off right away. And in this one, Andy and the return of, we can say spoilers now because everybody knows this who's seen the movie, and the return of Ian Holmes' ghost, I guess, because they made a CGI Ian Holmes.
I got to tell you, though, that weird CG lip moving thing.
Yeah, it still looks like a video game.
It's pretty brutal. It's pretty poorly. They were so this stuff we're not spending money on. I
feel like they could have just made a mask of his face and altered it a little bit. It was a little too CGI. But the idea that that model of synthetic was back was very cool. And I think the way Romulus is a straightforward running from the monster movie, but actually makes the later the Alien prequels make more sense in the world of Alien was a
Yeah.
great service.
Like,
to
why
all of
are
the Alien movies.
to understand how the company is getting a hold of stuff, that sort of genetic mutations they're trying to work with. Why is it in so many, it definitely, while it
What
fills
happened
in
to the alien at the end of Alien?
Yeah, it fills in some really cool story beats, but I would say the plot holes in this one, you can tell at a certain point the people making it were like, oh, who cares? Just finish the movie. Like, I'll give you an example. There's this huge fuss about the acid blood. We're on the bottom floor of the ship. You can't shoot the alien because it'll make a hole in the ship and there will be a space vacuum. This is a very serious issue. There's a whole sequence of them taking off the gravity to swim through and avoid the acid blood.
Oh, yeah, that was a cool scene.
Okay, so why is it when they shoot and kill the alien in the elevator shaft and it's covered in its green acid blood sitting on top of the elevator, it doesn't melt through the elevator and create a hole in the ship? At that point, they were like, oh my God, we just need to move on to the next scene. And she has to kill the alien. Go back and watch it. Go back and watch it.
Remember that part.
Kills that alien. Sitting on top of the elevator with acid blood everywhere. And I'm like, remember. Oh, you know why? Because clearly the material for just the elevator is made of acid-proof alien blood material.
I remember the gravity scene. I remember the face huggers chasing them.
That's great. The facehugger stuff is done so well.
I remember the introduction of the black goo, which is a big deal because that ties it to Prometheus. I remember the final creature. Who's
the breastfeeding. Oh my God. I couldn't even, my whole body was like gagging. I was gagging with my shoulders, with my like feet, like every part of me.
What did Vlad think of Romulus?
He had a lot of fun watching it and laughing hysterically at the plot holes, but really enjoyed it. And he started to get annoyed with me because I was asking him very detailed Prometheus questions, which he clearly couldn't answer, but didn't want to admit to not being able to answer. So he was just like, I'm not explaining this to you right now. So
I can explain. I love Prometheus. That's one where I remember everything about that movie.
So,
maybe.
But he really loved that they brought back the engineer at the end.
The engineer is like one of the best additions to for all the things that people say are weak about Prometheus. The notion of the engineers as this other being and adding another dimension and having them be a believable big bad with totally different qualities than the rest of the aliens is amazing. And I'm glad that they've sprinkled that.
So can I ask you? Is it at the beginning or the end of Prometheus when the engineer takes the thing and he turns into like dust and spreads everywhere?
That's the opening scene. But
what is that? What does that mean?
It is unclear. It is unclear what that is, as far as I know. But there is a theory that is the engineers creating life on Earth.
Right. That's the theory.
Because our DNA is connected to them, according to the movie.
Right.
That they're basically on this empty planet.
Right.
And for the sake of experimentation or creating life or whatever, they do what they do, and the result of that becomes life on Earth. But since they don't date that or tell you what location that is, in theory, it could be the engineers have gone around the world doing this everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But what it doesn't necessarily answer is what is the difference between that act and the black goo, which is this crazy bioweapon that's totally out of control.
But then do the engineers create life on Earth, but do they also create the xenomorph?
Well, if you follow Alien Covenant, they didn't create the actual xenomorph. The xenomorph was a creation of David, the robot, who was playing with the engineer's black goo that had gone awry during Prometheus that he discovered. So he became obsessed with creating the perfect organism.
And he creates
what becomes the xenomorph.
The xenomorph.
Now, does the xenomorph already exist elsewhere? There's the proto-xenomorph called the Deacon that appears at the end of Prometheus that comes out of the engineer. Like, we don't know a lot about the engineer's world, but what we do know is that David flies the ship back to their planet And
That's Covenant. I don't think I saw Covenant.
yeah, and covers them in
Which is the
goo,
one
and
where
that's it
ends
for
with
the
his
engineer.
head in a bag, where it's like
That's Prometheus.
Prometheus is just like what's her face, Shaw and David, but she just has like his head in a bag, and they have all these like
so Covenant, which is a pretty grim movie. I don't love Covenant. It's not to me it's the weakest Alien movie of all of them, other than the Alien Predator stuff. But and again, I think in Alien you're better off not knowing the answers to a lot of these questions. But basically these humans go out and follow a distress signal that they shouldn't follow, as usual, and they find David, who is now camped out on the engineer's planet, and he's just been doing experiments to create the perfect organism.
But that's what Prometheus is about.
Prometheus is them finding the goo, but
no, Prometheus is them going. It's like Charlize Theron going with like the scientists to go and basically discover the origin of life on Earth.
The origin of life on Earth,
and that's how they find David, right?
No, David is part of their ship.
David's part of their ship.
And his model is essentially, what they're saying is his model is essentially discontinued, and that's why you have Ian Holmes' model. Right. There's this whole sub story of the different models of the synthetics.
Right.
That like Ian Holmes' model is 1,000% loyal to the company. David's has his own plan. Gets excited about creating something more perfect than humans, and that's how the xenomorph gets created. So that's part of why that model no longer exists. Is that they created these models of the synthetics that are more mercenary.
Few things. First of all, one of the coolest scenes of all time is when Shaw gives herself a C-section to get the xenomorph out of her. One of the greatest all-time scenes. 2, in Romulus, I did find the cohort of young people so interchangeable. Couldn't really tell them apart, didn't really care. Didn't feel, except for when she has to breastfeed the engineer, really was like, okay. But that, to me, I was like, that's a horrible way to go.
So I really like, I think one of the reasons why Shaw in Prometheus wins you over, other than that Noomi Rapace, like, she was already a really great actor.
She was a pretty big star
that people knew. She had been in the original Dragon Tattoo movies. But the act of her doing that epic scene where she has to perform the surgery on herself, I feel like puts her over in the audience's mind, that makes her one of the great characters in the history of the Alien franchise, which is why it's a bummer she's not really in Alien Covenant. They explain what happens to her, but it's kind of a bummer that you don't have a human to follow. In some ways, I feel like that the people making the movies don't want a human to follow, because they don't want to, you don't have to pay the xenomorph extra.
I mean, basically, I think pros and cons to it. The xenomorph is the star of Romulus. The downside to that is that you don't have a human that you're totally, there's the young girl, but you're sort of like, whatever.
Yeah. You know. I mean, if she continues to be in the movie, great. I'd love to follow her, but
again, I was more interested in the synthetic, the guy.
Yeah. They keep doing a great job with these synthetics. And David,
I mean, I could not act like that. I couldn't be a robot. I must follow the companies, or I have a new directive. Like,
David Johnson, who plays Andy, he's phenomenal in that movie as a sort of Pinocchio robot situation. Wow, so this has been a really interesting deep dive into Wicked. And
I mean, if you look at the core, the theme across our reviews is we're looking at these, prequel, alternate explanation of a backstory. It's sort of these prequel backstory movies.
One of my biggest things about Alien Romulus is that the prequel stuff and the stuff that's added in it doesn't break the movies, right? And it sounds like Wicked's enriches the movies a lot.
It does.
One of the things that ultimately screws the Star Wars sequels, not so much the prequels, but the sequels, is at a certain point you start getting things filled in, and you're like, ugh, I wish I didn't know that. And,
Yeah.
and I would have rather not known. And so so that's good things to say about both of these.
I'm going to leave off with a recommendation, which is because I'm thinking about Wicked. And if you're like, I really want to snuggle up with my kids and watch a musical this Thanksgiving weekend, the truth is I'm still going to recommend Wonka ultimately over Wicked because it's a complete story. It has the same sort of pageantry and costuming and, stuff. Listen, it's not as rich as the Wicked world, but like my kids and I rewatched it last week, and it's a complete story, beginning, end, done.
Can you watch the next movie and it be sort of like a loose sequel without it?
Yeah, and you can go into the next movie and there's a massive time jump. There's like a 50-year time jump, but it makes enough sense.
Is there a way, like, there should be a name for these, like almost quill, like they're not exactly adjacent.
Prequel. What would you call a sequel?
It's like adjacent? A prequel. It's like a midrash, if you will.
A midrash. It feels like a midrash. An interpretation. An interpretive prequel.
An interpretive prequel. That's it. It should be like these are interpretive prequels. They're not exactly
best
canon.
Adapted prequel.
Yeah, they're not exactly canon, but if you want to make them prequel, canon,
yeah. Exactly. They're not really exactly canon, but they ride so close to it. You're like, all right, it doesn't break canon. It doesn't break any of it.
But you also, if you're not into it, you can just keep your brain in the
you can stay. I guess the Wicked one completely breaks it. It like breaks the entire story, but it definitely enriches the world. But so I'm just gonna say, like, if you're like, oof, I promised my kids like a fun, but you're like, I'm not gonna commit to that. I'm not that into Wicked. I'm not that much of a Broadway musical person. I don't need this much backstory. I still recommend Wonka. I thought it was delightful.
That's great.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I got.
Well, very cool. I don't know if I've watched, the jet lag from New Zealand has all but destroyed me since last week. I love, by the way, how much everyone enjoyed the video of Mom bouncing across New Zealand. Thank you to everybody who wrote in about that.
Guys, we just got some photos of her in a helicopter. I am just praying she comes home in one piece. That woman is all over the place. Can no longer keep track. She's in a part of the planet where her GPS is no longer working. Yeah.
And I have it. Oh, yes. There's a new show that I highly recommend. It's called St. Denis Medical. It stars the amazing Wendy McClendon-Covey and David Alan Grier and Josh Lawson, who was in House of Lies, the one with Don Cheadle about the consultants.
Lies.
Okay, House of Lies. That one. He's so great. Anyways, it's really really funny. It's from the mold of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Rec. I'm pretty sure it's Michael Schur. I think it's another Michael Schur show, and it's just take the Parks and Rec heart and put it in a hospital, heart and humor and put it in a hospital, and you're cooking with something really good. Alison Tolman is kind of the main character. It has a lot of other familiar actors from those Superstore vibes also. Oh, no, it's Justin Spitzer's the creator who created Superstore, I believe. But that also has that similar and created American Auto and worked on The Office. So it has that. It does have that Michael Schur style of mock documentary with heart, making fun of the workplace in the hospital setting. Good place for this.
Before we sign off, we're recording this on Tuesday, the 26th. It's going to come out on Friday. In the gap between recording today and Friday, we will be celebrating Shai's birthday.
That's right.
We have a big birthday, and you haven't posted.
No, I've got to edit this video.
Birthday video, because we have quite the birthday video for Shai.
There's a video coming.
That I mean, what greater gift to give Shai than to give him the homework of filming and editing his own birthday surprise video. I created a scenario where Shai was tricked into filming his own birthday surprise.
I'm looking forward to working on it, but there were a lot of cameras involved. Okay, with that, wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and we're thankful to everybody who supports the show and all of our family and friends, and wishing everybody a healthy holiday.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Friday Night Movie, the sibling rivalry and pop culture podcast. Join the Friday Night Movie family by following @FryNightMovie on all of the socials and visiting our website, FryNightMovie.com. Our theme song is by What Does It Eat? And make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.